Hello and welcome to the Film Pulse Podcast. This is episode number 440. My name's Adam Batterson. With me today, we've got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
This week on the show, we'll be taking a look at Master, which is out now on Amazon Prime Video. We'll also be going over some we're watching on the watch list and going over this week's new releases in theaters, VOD, and Blu-ray. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Please remember to review us on iTunes if you get a moment. That would be very helpful. New Saved by the 90s. We're recording it tonight, so hopefully that'll be dropping sometime this week, maybe early next week. I've had a lot of life events getting in the way of editing and things, but I'm hoping to refocus. And it's not just Elden Ring, believe it or not. Other things happening.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope to get that edited and out as quickly as possible. With that, I believe that we can move into our review for this week. We're talking about Master. This is written and directed by Mariama Diallo. I have a synopsis here. Two African-American women begin to share disturbing experiences at a predominantly white college in New England. This stars Regina Hall in a non-comedic role for her. Kevin, we'll start with you. What were your initial impressions of Master? You know, it's interesting. Sorry to immediately interrupt you, but like I'm looking at the poster and it says Master, and then behind that it's like scratched into the wall.
Uh-huh.
But there's like two little lines at the end that almost make it look like it says Master 2.
Is there a Master 2 coming?
I don't know.
Oh boy. It's secrets revealed in a poster.
Tagline on this one is, "This school is cursed."
It is. It very much is.
But yeah, I mean the school's cursed, but isn't really just like the whole country cursed?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of what we're getting at here with this movie?
Yes. I think we're jumping pretty far ahead.
We are.
I thoroughly enjoyed, I don't know if enjoyed is the right word for this, but where this movie went with that in terms of it's not just the school, it's everything and it's everywhere. And it just became surprisingly like far more bleak than I was expecting it to go. Even like in the lead up to that, I never thought it was going to go that route and become that bleak in a way. And then of course, it can be both ways. It's not entirely bleak like it is with Zoe Renee's character, who's like the freshman at this Ancaster College, where Regina Hall doesn't see it as quite as bleak as she does. So there's kind of, different outlooks.
And I think that also, yes, you're correct with that. And I think also it was like, because Regina Hall's character is like, she's already been through it. She's on the other side of it, or so she thinks.
Yeah.
Because she's, she's put in her time, she's put in the work, and she's dealt with this, casual racism, this systemic racism that plagues not just these institutions, but just the country as a whole. And I think that she's looking at this new position that she's in as like, I'm on the other side of this, like I made it. I persevered. But as she finds out, there's no getting rid of it.
Yeah. Which I gotta say that like the social aspects of this, like the social political undercurrent of this movie, not even undercurrent, but the stuff that's on the surface as well, I thought is really phenomenally well done. Now, I could see some people having an issue with it in terms of this isn't really like a full-on horror movie to me. Like it dips its toes into that occasionally throughout, but it seems to be more of the, that socio-political
thriller. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
something along those lines where it has like swifts like some horror stuff here and there, but
there
not a
it's
full-on horror movie, really.
yeah, it's kind of interesting because there are like supernatural elements to it, but they're very very sparse and not really examined with any great detail. Like there's the whole thing here, this the surface level of this movie is that you have, like the synopsis says, this historically white college, and there's a history here. There was a student who was burned for being a witch, and then after this event, there, I guess like every several years, I don't know how often, but someone dies, a student dies like under mysterious circumstances, and a lot of times it's isolated to this one specific room, and it just happens to be the same room that this new student Jasmine is in. And she starts to experience some kind of creepy things aside from the rest of the student body uh being racist, without them
Yeah,
really
and I
really
think
realizing it.
that that's what it comes down to is you know the like the school as a whole, whether the faculty and the students and everything, they kind of all place it on this legend of the witch that was burned, Salem era, the witch trials. It's the witch, it's the witch. But when it comes down to it, the person that died the first time, which what was the very first black student they had there, hung
Yes.
herself, and then the hung herself air quotes, and of course Jasmine, being the new freshman, is that they won't come to terms with that it's just racism. It's not this witch legend, this supernatural thing that's killing, black students at Ancaster. It's the racism, because even the stuff that Jasmine starts to experience, the students themselves are like, oh, it's the witch.
Yeah,
But I don't
because they
think
don't they
ghost
don't
witches are lighting crosses on fire.
yeah, they don't look at it. A lot of them, and the faculty, I include the faculty in this too. The interactions that Regina Hall's character has with the other faculty members, and how just they're it's like they don't know. It's like they don't realize what they're doing, and it's not that these people are are inherently racist. It's again just that kind of systemic racism that they can say things that are inherently racist, but they themselves, they don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah. And I like the other side of it that Diallo put in here, where it's the times that we live in now, where you have this white liberal space that's trying really hard not to be racist.
Right. So it's like
And
they go too far. They go way too far in the other direction so that it circles back around. And
exactly.
there's one like major plot point that I don't want to spoil, but first of all, I totally called it. I knew from the very beginning.
Yeah, because you have that other faculty member that's always chiming in.
Yep.
I think, like I said, I think some people could be disappointed in terms of it not being deeply entrenched in horror, like the horror movie aspects, as one might say. But I mean, it's definitely horror that's more akin to, real life situations.
Yeah.
And where, the country is as a whole, past, present, and future. But there was actually a part of me that was actually kind of like I noticed that it was steering away completely from, going down the horror path. I was like, you know what? It's like I actually like this more, I think, as it is.
Hmm. I don't know if you've seen the show. It's also an Amazon Prime show. Actually, was Them, which came out last year. This sort of reminds me kind of that show,
Yeah.
and I liked that show more than this. But of course, they had more time to tell a deeper story. But I didn't really go into this expecting a straight horror movie, so because I didn't even see like a trailer for this or anything, so I didn't really know. I only knew that it was Regina Hall and she was the new master of this like historically white university. That's really all I knew. So the traditional, the lack of traditional horror elements wasn't really a shock to me. So I wasn't really disappointed with that element or that aspect of it either.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if people are going into it,
Yeah,
if they're
probably.
thinking more so like, oh, this is gonna be
Yeah, like a Jordan Peele movie or
yeah,
something like
which
that. Which this is not. This is not that.
no,
But
but what it is, I thought it was very well constructed.
I agree.
And also Regina Hall in a non-comedic performance here. I think she does a phenomenal job, I thought.
she's incredible. Yeah, I agree. She is just incredible. I like her in comedy, but I think she does a really incredible job in drama as well. So everybody like performances across the board, really good. I mean, casting wise, really good. Every time you see Bruce Altman in a role, you're just like, oh well, we know that he's the dickhead, and that holds true here. He's one of the.
Yeah,
Uh,
why is that?
I think it's just. I think
Why's,
it's a combination of his face and his voice.
yeah, I think you might be right.
He
There's
just
something about him. There's
he
just something about him.
he can easily play like a dickhead lawyer or
Yeah.
you know
He's always the dickhead businessman.
yeah
He's
dickhead
always got
businessman.
he's always a dickhead that has power and should not.
Yep. Yeah, I thought everybody did a good job here. It's interesting. I'm going to be talking about another movie in just a little bit that is like kind of how I felt with this movie, but just to the extreme, where like there's moments of extreme awkwardness and cringe, and you have to imagine that these are conversations and comments that people hear in real life, and you're just like, oh my god! Like I genuinely hope that as like Gen Z and maybe even millennials as they start to gain more prominence, that we'll start seeing less of these just awkward conversations and things.
Mm,
Although
I wouldn't. No.
that party scene was pretty brutal as far as the cringe
Yeah,
factor.
yeah, that was extremely rough. But yeah, from what I read, this is not entirely, you know, completely based off of her own experience, but it's kind of drawing inspiration from Diallo's experience of going to Yale.
Mm.
And I think that she had been writing it not too long after that experience.
I mean, I could totally see that. It seems like
It
any of
feels,
those Ivy League schools would be really rough for any person of color.
and I think that comes across really well here in the work is that it feels lived in,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Oh yeah, yeah. All nothing feels too like too theatrical, too ridiculous in the conversations and things.
Yeah, it's
It's
just
not
a,
like you have overtly racist
I mean,
students or anything like that.
you have some. You have some.
The,
And then some of the but some
mo-
of the bigger stuff is you don't know who it is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a couple of things that happen that transpire that are big deals, but it's never come to a resolution as to who did it. But I think it's just that it's those aspects of it folded in here and there with this just continual onslaught of you said of like casual racism and like microaggressions, like that type of deal, where that's just like this steady line throughout, and then you just have some of these big things
Yeah, a
sprinkled
lot.
in here and
Yeah,
there.
a lot of unconscious bias that's happening in this movie as well, and it it really makes you think. Like, I'm like coming from a privileged white person. Like, movies like this put certain things into perspective, and it helps us see that, like, it's just so shitty for so many people who live their lives with constant conversations like this. And again, it's not necessarily people overtly and outwardly hating, perpetuating
Yeah,
hate speech or something. It's the subtle it's the subtle comments and things like that. And I just know that if I mean, it gets under my skin, and I'm not even someone who is affected by this in real life. So I can't imagine what it must be like on a day-to-day basis for people who, young black students who attend these predominantly white schools, or just anybody in situations like that.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that at the end of the day, like, that's where the horror comes from, and that's what really kind of gets under your skin with this movie. And I think that it does come off incredibly well. I don't think that anything feels too, nothing's preachy, nothing is too sensationalized or anything like that. I think that it all, like, presents everything in a really um realistic manner. And yeah, I like it. I like this a lot. I like the
I,
setting. Like, I like the campus.
yeah.
I don't know where this was shot, but it's a really great looking campus. I love the buildings.
Also, the nice little touch at the end, like you have the through line of this school trying to be,
More inclusive, and
the radical inclusion. It's not just inclusion; they want to be radical about it.
oh, it looks like it
Which
was filmed. It was filmed in Vassar College.
okay, which is that's the aspect of it that I like that she included is that how they go overboard with it. It's
Yep.
not that they just want to be inclusive and they're just going to do it. It's just going to be an action that they do with not much fanfare. You know what I mean? Just hire, more, just hire more people and, build up
It can
your,
happen organically.
yeah. And you don't have to make a big deal about it. You don't have to make videos being like, oh, we're going to be radically inclusive. No, you just do it. Shut the
Yeah,
hell up.
just do it. Just bring on more students from different backgrounds. Bring on more faculty from like all different races,
And
religions, genders, everything.
I like how that's the through line, but even as you're kind of seeing it, like when the faculty gets together, you're like, okay, there's two black women, and that's it, and like an Asian guy, I think, and then like that's
Yeah.
it. And then there's the nice little touch at the end of this movie, like as the credits are rolling, that the only other time that you see like black, like workers of the university
Oh, it's the help.
is the guy that yeah is the guy picking up the trash, the guy doing the salt on the sidewalks.
The lunch lady.
Yeah, that's the only time you see that quote unquote radical inclusion.
And then you also, one other interesting aspect of this is that you have this, like, almost like a Mennonite community that's like right next to the school. And
Yeah,
I kind of wish that they dove into that a little bit more. I mean, I understand why that was there, but I kind of, that whole aspect of it intrigued me, and I kind of wanted to see more of that. But I thought that was a nice little addition too.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that this is kind of rated so poorly.
Is it? I didn't even see like what it's got. Oh, I see it's got a 4.5 out of 10 on IMDb. That's like a user score though, so those are probably people who are, you know, not
Okay, so that's fine.
not expecting what it was. I wonder what it has on. Let's see what it has on Rotten
Okay,
Tomatoes.
73 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, jumping ahead to the score, I was going to give this a 7 out of 10. So that's in line with the 73. I think.
Yeah, I give it a 7.5.
Yeah, there we go. It's
I
on
could
Prime
see it.
Video.
I could see it bumping up too, because like the more I think about this, just like the construction of it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah,
is.
it's quite good.
It is. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see more from Diallo, because I mean,
Oh
this is
yeah.
a debut feature, by the way.
Oh yeah, and it's yeah,
Like,
it's a good feature debut.
yeah, like it's pretty assured filmmaking.
Cool. Let's move on and talk about some of what we've been watching. I believe it is your turn this week, Kevin, to
Well,
start.
that's good because I only have one, so we can just bang it out.
There we
I
go.
can get on with my life. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, Cure, 1997, Kurosawa. Cure. I don't know if we watched this.
I've seen it twice.
I
Now
like. I feel like we had to have because we were obsessed with this.
we didn't see it, or I didn't see it back when we first really dove into Asian cinema. I saw it years later.
Which is
And
insane to
then
me.
and
That
then I saw it again when we did it was a Halloween special on the 90s podcast.
okay, it's crazy to me that we didn't that this one didn't come up,
Yeah,
during our obsession.
I think maybe it was I just wasn't aware of it. And like I know that a lot of the movies that we were seeing were like newer, like a few years old, and this one being from 97 maybe. That's one of the reasons
Yeah,
it didn't come up.
but either way, I finally got around to it, and yeah, this this is so good.
Oh, I know, man.
This is so damn good. Uh, I think the one is right off the bat. You have a really, really storyline here. Like just him hunting down a quote unquote serial killer that's not really killing anyone, which is phenomenal stuff. It's just great stuff. But I also love how it slowly gives you more and more. Like when you're first introduced to this guy, it's really like bizarre. Like we already know like a couple murders have happened. We're introduced to this guy. We get a snippet of what he does, like of his process, and then there's an end result of a murder, and you're like, okay, well, like, what is this guy doing? How does he do it? And then he like each subsequent uh, interaction that he has with someone, like you get a little bit more and a little bit more until it's finally revealed, like what this guy's process is, and just the process itself is just something else. And essentially, anytime that he's interacting with someone, you're just like, okay, where's the water at? When's he gonna pull out the lighter?
Mm.
Like, how's he gonna get him? How's he gonna ensnare this person? And it becomes really tense in that moment where it's just I'm essentially like there's so much tension built around like is water going to spill? Is he gonna ask to smoke a cigarette? And then things are about to kick off. And then outside of that too is the kind of like mind wandering visions that people have throughout this, and just the way that they're shot is just exceedingly creepy and just really unnerving in a way that's like kind of hard to put your finger on, but it's just disturbing. And then
Yeah.
to the way that it ends, I mean, it's just a creepy ass movie that gets under your skin.
Yep. It's great. It's a must see. It's I think it's really one of the best Japanese horror films to date.
Yeah, and I think it's a thing that reminded me is Kurosawa as a director. I mean, he's got some absolute bangers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy keeps going.
I haven't seen a ton of his movies. I mean, he directed a
Same.
lot of stuff.
That's what I mean. Is like for some reason, like if you were to ask me outside of like me recently watching one of his movies, I probably wouldn't rate him that high. But any like the week or two after seeing a movie of his, he immediately jumps up like, oh yeah, this guy. How could I forget fucking Kurosawa? This guy's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
But then it just wanes for some reason until
Mm-hmm.
I finally get around to watching another one.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. All right, so that is Cure. Absolutely recommend checking that one out for sure if you haven't seen that. A somewhat disturbing horror movie that I saw this week was X. This is the new Ty West one. This is playing in theaters right now, so I went to the theater to see this bad boy. And I was very glad that I went because this movie's great. It takes place in 1979. The premise here is that you have a group of filmmakers who rent this cabin in Texas to shoot a porno, and it turns out that the elderly couple who owns this cabin are not big fans of them shooting a porno there, and
Hmm.
things turn pretty violent. So this is sort of like Ty West's love letter to 70s horror, 70s exploitation. It's a great like kind of cross section of like 70s porn and Texas Chainsaw Massacre style horror. It's great. It looks great. I think this was shot on film. At least it looks like it was shot on film. 35 millimeter, I believe. Not. Kind of wish it was shot on 16 millimeter. Really, no, that would really give it that kind of Texas Chainsaw look. But what he does here with the cinematography is great. He uses like some really great looking split screen, and he just nails the aesthetic. I mean, it's really good. So if you're into 70s horror, oh yeah, and it is very violent too, as you might expect. So
Yeah,
lots,
I would think.
yeah, lots of lots of blood and guts in this one. I mean, it's not, if you're familiar with Ty West's previous films, he's more about the slow burn. So a huge most of this movie is just a about a group of friends making a porn in this kind of creepy house in Texas. And it's great. Like the thing that I think sets his movies apart from somebody like Eli Roth. Like Eli Roth, his movies are also they also tend to be slow burns. And the difference here is that with Ty West, all these characters were likable. Like they were all, you might think that they're like these kind of sleazy 70s porno people, but they were all like friends to each other. They were looking out for each other. They were trying to help out the elderly couple living in the house. Like they were just good people in general. And I think that goes a long way, especially in a movie like this where you're spending so much time establishing the characters, establishing the scenario, getting and building the conflict. And it was great. You had Mia Goth in here. She was sort of the lead as Maxine, and then you also had Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, Kid Cudi, and Martin Henderson and Owen Campbell. So that's like your kind of central, your core cast there. And it's great. Highly recommend it.
Nice.
So I was finishing up my South by Southwest journey this week, and I have a couple that I would like to mention. I saw a bunch of stuff, but I'm just gonna kind of give you the highlights here. The first one is Soft and Quiet. Now, if you haven't heard about this movie, uh, I would say go into it cold. I will. What I will tell you is that it's directed by a Beth De Arujo, and it involves a woman who goes to a a church, which is a where she has like it's like the first in what she hopes to be a series of meetings with women in her neighborhood. She's trying to like organize this like group where they can like workshop different ideas and stuff like that, like an after school thing with parents and like kind of like-minded women. And that's really all I can say about it. Aside from the fact that it is extremely disturbing, it is extremely unnerving. I mean, this movie just shredded my nerves. Like I just was feeling so uncomfortable and uneasy throughout this whole movie. I had a knot in my stomach the whole time. It is like an onslaught. It is just so difficult to watch. Um, and it's all done in a single take, so there's no cuts here either, which makes it even more uncomfortable, and it kind of really accentuates the brutality of what happens in this movie. We do have a written review coming out for this. It should be published by the time you're listening to this. Chris wrote a review, and he didn't even give it a score because he didn't feel like it was appropriate to score this movie. And it's that's all I can say about it. If you're looking for something that's going to be a very challenging watch, then give it a look. Blumhouse is putting this out, so this may get like some kind of wide release, but I think that it is going to really, I mean, everybody's going to be talking about this one, I think.
Gotcha.
And I'll reiterate, go into it cold, because I literally had what I just told you is exactly what I knew. Like I didn't know anything about it going into it, and that's where it like that's how it hits you. If you already know like the premise going into it, it's not going to have the same impact at all. So, yeah, that's Soft and Quiet, and that should be coming out at some point later this year. The other one that I would recommend is called Slashback. This is directed by Naila Inuksook, and this takes place in this this Arctic town where it's daylight all the time there, and you have it centers on a group of young women who they're all like best friends, and they're out, just poking around, just living life, being rowdy teens, and they see what turns out to be an alien life form that has crash landed into the area, and this alien starts like killing animals and taking over their bodies, and we're looking at like a Thing situation here.
Oh boy!
So it's basically like John Carpenter's The Thing, but you have it's a group of horror movie loving teenagers who are fighting back against the aliens.
Okay, yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's really, I highly recommend it. It's super fun. It's got an awesome soundtrack. Let me think. It's kind of like, I would say it's like it's sort of like Attack the Block. And it's also sort of like Blood Quantum? Kind of like that. Yeah. Kind of like that too. The effects work is pretty fun. especially when like the aliens start taking over people, because they're not very good at it. It's not like the alien and the thing. And by the way, they make lots of references directly to the thing in this too. So it's very kind of on the nose and like kind of self-referential. Like it knows exactly what it is. And the aliens when they take over human bodies, it's not like in the thing where they like kind of turn into the person. It's more like they put the person on as a skin suit. So it's like they're not fooling anybody at all in this. Like they know
Okay,
exactly.
so it's kind of like what is it, Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black?
Yeah, but even more so.
Yes.
It's awesome. I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if this got picked up. I'm absolutely sure that it will if it hasn't been already, because it is a ton of fun, and I highly recommend checking this out. Again, it's called Slashback. Kevin, you'll like this one a lot. You'll have a
Yeah,
blast
no,
with it.
yeah, this sounds fun as hell.
The final one that I'll mention is The Kids in the Hall Comedy Punks. This is directed by Reginald Harkema. It's a documentary about kids in the hall. I don't have a ton to say about it other than I'm a huge fan of Kids in the Hall, and this sort of reignited my love for Kids in the Hall. The funny thing about
Yes.
this, now, and I'm sure that you're the same as me, and I would venture to guess most people are the same as me, where their introduction to Kids in the Hall was on Comedy Central. It wasn't when the show was originally airing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is in the documentary they talk about that. And they actually play a lot of like the promos when Kids in the Hall moved was airing reruns on Comedy Central, and they were talking about how like that like when Comedy Central started playing it is when like all of a sudden they like had this huge resurgence in popularity, because like the show was off the air for like several years by the time Comedy Central started playing it, and like their popularity just exploded. And by that time, they weren't even like really doing anything, the Kids in the Hall. And then after Comedy Central picked it up and stuff, they kind of got back together and started touring and doing other stuff. But there's a lot of interesting stuff here. I didn't realize that they were together for like so long. Like they formed in the early 80s, like 1981. So they've been a comedy troupe for quite a long time. And they also give you a little snippet of the new show. So they're making a sixth season of the show that's going to be on Amazon Prime. And the way that they're doing it is it's they said in the documentary that they want to just pick up where they left off, um, at the end of the fifth season, and just make it another. It's not like a special. It's not like Death Comes to Town or any kind of like one-off thing that they did in the past. This is just like a proper season of the show, just picking up where they left off, and which is I think is kind of cool. This also made me go back and start to rewatch the series, which the whole series is on Prime, so you can watch it. It's interesting because like I don't find it as funny I think as I used to, but at the same time I'm enjoying myself so much watching it, and I think that I appreciate it on a different level. Like some of the sketches I think are still really funny, but a lot of them I find to be just more kind of fascinating than laugh out loud funny. Just the fact that you have this like weird, sometimes absurd, nonsensical little bit that they just were somehow able to film and get on TV. And they just didn't give a fuck. Like nothing necessarily went together in the show, and they just did whatever they wanted, and it didn't even seem to matter if this sketch worked or not. They just had an idea, wanted to shoot it, and there it was.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna have to get back into some Kids in the Hall.
Oh yeah,
Fucking
it's it,
obsessed with them.
I just yeah, I watched them nonstop. Like every summer on Comedy Central, man. They would it would just be like Kids in the Hall on SNL, and I just man, I loved Kids in the Hall.
I always like Kids in the Hall more. I always enjoyed
I,
that more
I
than
did too as a
SNL.
kid. Well, and it's interesting, like because they were talking about this, and I really didn't even think about this, but in the documentary they talked about how SNL was always a spoof on what like pop culture. So like whatever kind of was trendy at the time, anything that was in like the zeitgeist is kind of what they would make sketches about, you know, like politics, entertainment, all of that stuff, anything that's new and relevant. Whereas Kids in the Hall, they didn't care about any of that. Like they were more about people. Like they wanted to
Yeah.
make sketches about families, like family dynamic and weird people. So there is something of a timelessness to the show, which I think is kind of interesting. The documentary is fine. I mean, it has all of them together, so it's like more of like a group interview with them, which actually I kind of like because it allows for like more conversations between the group members and stuff like that. I didn't know this, but like at one point they had a really big falling out with Dave Foley, and he was like not really in the group, and that none of them were talking to him, and it was like just this really toxic type of situation. And they ended up having to sue him to be in the movie, Brain Candy, and like they have all this behind the scenes footage on the set of Brain Candy, and every single one of them look absolutely miserable. Like nobody wanted to be there, nobody wanted to shoot the movie. It was just like a complete nightmare for them. Like I can't remember who it was, but like I know at least one of them said it was like the worst. It was the worst job they ever had. It was like one of the worst experiences of their lives. So let's take a look at what we have in theaters this week. The Lost City. That's the only one.
Theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've never even heard it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure
I-
you've heard of
yeah.
this.
Okay.
It's got a
Yeah, I never
generic
knew.
name.
I never knew the name of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty generic name, but you know, this is an action comedy with Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock. I'm sure it's average at best. On VOD this week, on the 22nd, we have The Institute. This film tells the story of a young couple desperate to have a child to begin treatment at a renowned doctor's secluded facility. The couple becomes suspicious when the medical regimen brings on psychological side effects. That sounds very similar to that Hulu movie that came out last year, the one with Alana Glazer.
Oh yeah. I know they're
The Rosemary's
generic title
Baby.
because I can't think of it.
I can't think of it either. Win a Trip to Browntown. That's a really bad looking comedy. We got, I think that the concept of this is it's a husband and wife, and the wife challenges the husband to lose 50 pounds. And if he can lose it, then she agrees to do anal.
Mm.
So that's
Mm.
but the poster is a little questionable because it's like it has like brown handprints
Yeah.
on her butt on the outside of her skirt.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering like what that's all about, you know? Cuz that's more than just anal at that point. Like there's when there's actual shit involved.
Yeah.
Maybe that there's more to this movie than what
Than
the
they're letting on.
trailer. Yeah, maybe he wants
Yeah.
not only the anal part, but maybe he wants her to like shit all over him or something.
Maybe. I don't want to find out, honestly.
Either way, I'm not going to see it. We also have Deep Hatred as a horror movie. On the 25th, we have Topside. Underneath the streets of New York City, a 5-year-old girl and her mother live among a community that is claimed long abandoned subway tunnels as home. So that seems like it's drawing inspiration from real life.
Fat Lip is in it.
Fat Lip is in it? Oh, wow.
Fat Lip is in it. He plays a guy named John.
Oh, okay. Nice. Let's see. We also have All My Friends Hate Me. That is a kind of a comedy thriller. That one was okay. We got You're Not My Mother. That is a horror movie also. King Otto. That looks like it's a documentary. Soccer doc, maybe.
Mm.
On Netflix, we have Love Like the Falling Petals. And I think that's about it for VOD. Blu-ray this week, we got the Godfather trilogy coming out in 4K. Eastern Promises from 2007 coming out in 4K. Nightmare Alley is coming out. I was disappointed with that one. We got The Core from 2003. That's going to be on the Shout Factory Selects line. Come Drink With Me from 1966. That's coming out on Arrow. Let's see. Mad Dog Morgan from 1976. La Llorona. This is from 1933. So that's like one of the early ones. This To Sleep So As to Dream from 1986. That's going to be on Arrow. It looks like there's a whole bunch of these Indicator series that are coming out. The Phantom of the Monastery from 1934. A Time for Dying from 1969. There's some horror movie called 645, which the tagline is Vacation, Die, Repeat. So maybe it's some kind of Groundhog Day thing. That's pretty much it. What about Criterion's?
We have one, and that's The Flight of the Phoenix from 1965, directed by Robert Aldrich, James Stewart, Richard Attenborough, Peter Finch, Ernest Borgnine.
Oh, yeah. All right. Cool. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You can send your questions and topics to podcast@filmpulse.net. You can follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet and @filmpulsekevin. And if you have a moment, consider reviewing us on iTunes. We'd very much appreciate that. For Kevin Rakestraw, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you next week.